Since the dawn of man, there have been three questions that have stumped even the brightest of our minds. Kings and peasants, philosophers and scientists alike have all taken jabs at answering them, and have failed to produce a single acceptable answer. Those questions are, of course, what is the meaning of life? How do you pronounce Worcestershire sauce? And are video games art? Well, if you're still struggling to answer the last one, it surely means you haven't played Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. In fact, one of the only things I don't like about it is the title. The obvious title would be to drop the Hellblade and just call it Senua's Sacrifice. The problem with that is that lots of people, myself included, won't know how to pronounce Senua until they've already played it and heard it over and over. Not being able to pronounce a title certainly puts a hamper on marketing, but calling it Hellblade makes it sound like a melee doom or something. Senua isn't metal at all. If anything, it's orchestral, or even throat singing. Of course, I can't imagine where I got that idea from. Before we continue, let me just warn you that while I'm not going to intentionally spoil anything, I'm not going to shy away from spoilers either, so if you want a spoiler-free review, here it is. The game is great, only costs $30 full price, goes on sale fairly often, and has a time commitment of just around 7 hours. Go play it. Consider that your warning, now let's get back to the review. When I first started playing Senua, I was planning on doing a direct comparison to God of War. The similarities are so obvious after all. Both games are over-the-shoulder melee exploration games featuring main characters with either tattoos or paint on their face, carrying a severed head on their belt, and main characters who hear voices in their heads, all set against a backdrop of Norse mythology. But the longer I played, the more apparent it became how terrible of a comparison that really was. You see, God of War is a novel. It's long, over 20 hours for the story, well over 30 if you're a completionist. It's got a lot more meat on its bones. The combat is more involved, including special abilities and multiple weapons. It's got multiple characters, each with their own motivations and arcs. It's got exploration with collectibles, and explores a very large world made up of multiple realms, optional boss fights, etc. It's meant to be experienced over the course of weeks. Hellblade, on the other hand, is a poem. It's much shorter, taking over 7-ish hours to complete, tells a vague story through colorful language instead of precise communication. Everything about it is minimalist, but beautiful. It's a very compact game, shying away from the standard inclusions that can give games more of a feeling of complexity, but in this case would have simply clouded the experience. I don't talk much about graphics because in my opinion, we reached the point of good enough back in 2015 with The Witcher 3. But I would like to point out that there are parts of Hellblade that don't look particularly good. The kinds of graphics I'd expect in a high-quality VR game. But that never detracts from the experience, because one of the underlying themes of the game is that Senua is suffering from mental illness, and can never be sure what is real and what isn't. So a lot of the game is teetering on the edge of Uncanny Valley, which in other games might be distracting, but in this it just adds to the experience. The combat gets a lot of criticism from the other reviews I've seen, but I actually loved it. True, it's not very involved, it's just heavy attack, light attack, dodge, and parry. But they managed to keep it very raw. It feels gritty. It almost feels like you're teetering on the edge of death, as though every strike and every parry is a last-ditch effort to survive. Personally, this is some of my favorite video game swordplay. I love so much what they did to build the atmosphere and overall aesthetic of the game. There's so many things I've seen people complain about in other reviews that to me added so much to the experience. I've already talked about how in certain places the graphics don't hold up, but another area that would have been bad for any other game is the acting. Not to be too harsh on the actress, especially since she's an untrained actress in her first role, and was originally just a developer working on the game before being cast as the lead, the way she chews into the scenery is actually fantastic. I mean, I don't want to see her in any other roles, she's not going to be the next Lara Croft or anything, but this game is trying to build an atmosphere that is best represented by a broken mind. And her performance is once again teasing the Uncanny Valley. It's unsettling, and that's exactly what it needed to be. Another way they keep the atmosphere from breaking is by having absolutely zero pop-ups, meaning there's nothing to distract the player from the ambiance being created. There's no HUD, there's no highlighted collectibles or anything like that. The only things that glow are parts of the environment, like the totems that tell you stories. Unlike God of War, which is almost like a 20-plus hour tutorial, where approaching a door in the first 20 minutes will be met with a pop-up prompt to push the B button to open, and approaching a door in the 20th hour will be met with a pop-up prompt to push the B button to open, as if I hadn't learned that over the last week of playing the game. Senua trusts the player. Not only does it not continue to tell you those things 7 hours into the game, it never tells you those things a single time. There's no explanation of the mechanics or features of the game. The closest thing it'll do is have the voices in your head give you tips about the game. Honestly, wearing a headset and listening to the voices in your head can absolutely help you determine if you're going the wrong way, about to be stabbed in the back, or need to be worried about your health. But of course, they also aren't reliable and will lie to you regularly. On multiple occasions, the voices were telling me to turn back, I'm going the wrong way, I'm lost, I'm going to die, and then I reached the next checkpoint because I was going the right way all along, and they were just lying to me. The unreliable narrator is a theme through the entire game. The main idea for the design of the game was obviously to play with your perspective, and nothing is what it seems. That is evident in the puzzles it presents, the narration given, the overall story itself, and even the combat. You honestly can't believe anything you see or hear from any characters, including, or even especially, Senua herself. At one point, near the end of the game, the thought popped into my head, what if this is all in her head and she's actually been running around her village like a crazy person, murdering villagers and burning their homes to the ground? And as funny as I thought that would be, it wasn't the direction the game went, although it was well within the realm of possibility. Senua is a game for people who want something different, are more interested in the experience rather than focused on deep, addictive gameplay. It's also for people interested in Norse mythology. I'm no expert, but every story I'd actually heard about Thor, Loki, Balder, and the rest were told accurately in this game, leading me to believe that the rest of the stories were as well. Where most of pop culture will play fast and loose with mythologies, Senua actually seems to have respect for the source material. Who's it not for? People looking for a polished, full-length AAA title. As I said before, the graphics, gameplay, and acting simply aren't up to par with big production games today. Personally, I think it's fantastic and feel like those things actually serve to enhance the experience. But if that's not what you're looking for, this won't be the game for you. Also, anyone looking for a challenge. Hellblade won't test your limits as a gamer, or have you checking if you can change the difficulty to make it past the next boss or anything like that. It's built for the experience of the story, not the challenge of winning. Thanks for watching. Bye.